Welcome to Open Studio. This is Being the Business, and I am Jamie Thurston Wyngaard. This show is all about entrepreneurship. So I'm sure you sit at home and you're either an entrepreneur, you know someone that's starting a business, or you might just be sitting there having an idea of what business to start. I think it's everyone has this business ideas. But the truth is that being an entrepreneur is not as easy and glamorous as it seems. Entrepreneurship is quite a stressful career option. And nobody talks about this. Nobody wants to let you know what really goes on behind the scenes. And on Being in the Business, we kind of dig a little deep and find out what is happening in the life of an entrepreneur, not to expose them, but for us, for you, the viewer, and for even for me to learn some lessons. We have an amazing guest today. This is Tracy Leak. Tracy Leak has been working in the procurement space and the human development, the personal development space. And she's going to talk to us today about not putting all your eggs in one basket. So welcome, Tracy. How are you feeling?
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you. I just want to get a little bit more about who you are. I know you're a young lady, you're a family woman, you support local,
Yeah.
you've worked on a nuclear plant, you've worked in a PR space, you work for big companies, you even help people get their tenders. So just a little bit unpacking, who is Tracy Leak?
Well, Tracy Leak, I'm originally from Silvertown, and
Okay.
we moved to a little area called Montana. I'm one of four children. I'm the oldest. And yes, I think that has forged the way for me because I'm from a family where we have very strong women. So they take their place, they form, they build, they actually just ensure the development of the family as well. So that's where I am. I'm married with two beautiful boys. And my journey started when I wasn't accepted at university. There was just a few things happening, and I started studying part time. And that was a journey on its own because I had to take quite a distance to get to university, two taxis and a
Okay.
bus, etc. But that had taught me to persevere to
Mhm.
get to university, but also to make sure that you need to remain focused on what you want. Also learned that you need to make sure that no matter what you do it well.
Mm, mm.
And you ensure that as you do anything well, you need to make sure that you've got people that you can teach as well. Um,
Nice.
and that's how you grow. And
Yeah.
people generally believe that when you share with others, you have less, but surprisingly, you actually have more because having more is not about money.
Mm.
Having more is also about growing as a person and as an individual. So I'm from a background of very strong women, as I've previously said, and we've always, that has been my stance
Yeah.
around making a change and being a change because you can't complain about things and
Yeah.
not wanting to
See,
do
you made the
anything.
be the change
Yeah,
agent.
it's
And I think it really shows in
yeah.
in your journey, because from what I've read about, what I know about you, is that you've not just been in your core business from the procurement side, but you've also had your little, I could say, side hustles. You've been involved in Shazin, you've been involved in all these other things where you've grown as an individual in there, where you've been sent overseas, you've won awards, you've been recognized. Maybe share, brag a bit about your achievements and where you've been.
Yeah. Look, for me, surprisingly, as a young child, I was very shy. And a
Oh,
lot of people might not know
who
that.
wouldn't think that?
Very shy, introverted, and I mean, you, you learn that you need to grow, but also you need to have your own space as well. So
Mm-hmm,
being on your
mm-hmm,
own, it's quite okay. So when I joined the direct marketing space, it was a kind of I need to earn more money,
mm,
and I had my full-time job and my son, my first son, Aiden, he was just less than a year old. And my decision around starting something which I was unfamiliar to, but not realizing that I already knew how to sell, because that is things that we were taught as children. You need to make something happen. You
mm,
sell
mm.
something. There is a demand, and you ensure that you comply with that demand. So, being in the direct selling space, my very first year, I was top consultant,
Oh, lovely.
and then also I became the top new team leader as well.
Nice.
And the only reason why, well, maybe not the only reason, but one of the main reasons that spurred me on is because one of the ladies that were in my team, and this is the advantage of having people who are not quite in your circle, not quite on your side, is when they don't realize that they're actually encouraging you to do better. And there was a top prize,
So it's
and
about
she
the
says,
haters,
well,
you say. Yeah, let the haters hate.
there we go. And she told me, well, you're definitely not going to win this prize because it's mine. And I thought, now it's on. And yeah, I won top consultant for consecutive months, top team leader, top new team leader, and I won a trip overseas to Phuket,
Nice.
which was absolutely fabulous. I never in my wildest dream, a year before that, would have thought I'd be able to do that. Because we come from humble beginnings. You know, you don't think beyond what you're doing because you need to survive. So that was one of my achievements. And the main lessons I've learned is don't let anybody tell you that you can't. And if they tell you, you make sure that you make a success of it.
Now, when did you start your procurement business, though, as a consultant?
Well, I was in the procurement and contracting space when I'd worked at the nuclear power station. And I joined a company as the Black Women Partnership. And even though the partnership itself wasn't a fantastic success, the great thing about it was I learned from there and I grew from there. I started my own company called Alpha Procurement, Alpha being the beginning. And that's where I started in 2008, and I was determined to make it a success. And my intention ultimately was to assist with procurement and contracting policies, standard operating procedures, but more so assisting people with growing.
Such big words, and that's going over my head.
It's fine.
What is procurement anyway?
Procurement, a lot of people assume procurement is buying. Buying is something if you go to Pick and Pay.
Okay.
Procurement is a lot more than that. It's the sourcing, determining the total cost of ownership, ensuring that you're actually able to get the best price at the right time, at the right place. And obviously try to get.
So this is like finding the deals and finding the good service and finding the right service providers, but from a point of being a business. And I think from a lot of business sides, we always don't have the time to go bargain hunting.
Yeah.
So you're the one that does those things. And I think it's also about, I know you work with people to get tenders. And how's that process?
Yeah, so where that comes in is and looking at where people's strengths are. One person's strength could be that they are in a position where they're really good with PR.
Nice.
But they may not be really good with sourcing new business.
Yep. This is something I definitely want to continue discussing after our break. When we come back, we're going to find out more about the challenges that Tracy has faced. See you after the break. And welcome back to Be in the Business. I am Thurston Wyngaard. Today we've been speaking about not putting all your eggs in one basket with Tracy Leak. She's been involved in procurement, so that's just about the bargain hunting for your business and finding out how to do the whole personal development thing. But with you starting your business, we're starting now for procurement. I want to now unpack the entrepreneurship side around this. So what issues did you face as an entrepreneur and starting out this thing? And with the topic of not putting all your eggs in one basket, this was about you dealing with your clients.
Yeah. So for me, being an entrepreneur is beyond just having a title, being the sole proprietor or being the managing director or whatever. It goes beyond that. And you need to make sure that there's a balance because you're not only an entrepreneur.
No, definitely.
You've got other titles as well. So you need to ensure that you balance that. So being an entrepreneur is learning a lot of skills. And knowing where that skill is not going to suit you and being able to take an opportunity or another entrepreneur on board to facilitate that. And the challenge around that is that you actually need to trust the person and the service offering.
The person, the client, or
no, I'm talking about when you actually taking service providers on board to assist you with your business. When you are a one-woman show or one-man show, it is a challenge because you're dependent on yourself to generate new business, to ensure that you have a consistent flow of business, and also to ensure that you maintain your current clients and to earn a salary. So you need to make sure that you have the good view of splitting these things all up, making sure that if I'm going to spend an hour having a cup of coffee with a friend, catching up, that's costing you time, it's costing you money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't be doing it, but you need to balance it. So for me, making sure that you balance your entrepreneurship journey, you need to make sure that you plan. And yes, I know that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But that's exactly what being an entrepreneur is. You cannot just go into something without
Yeah.
having a definitive plan. And what I found was, and I still do, is that you must be able to work smarter. So in order to make sure that people know who you are, what you are about, you need to be able to be in a networking space. You need to be in a position where you're able to advertise your business, and also go into partnership with people. So for instance, if somebody has let's just say a fundraiser,
Yeah.
you make sure that you're able to offer a type of service. It doesn't necessarily have to be free, it can be a discount, but it needs to marry with what you also do. So you need to be able to think smart from an advertising
Yeah.
perspective, but also from a perspective of ensuring that there's a possibility of business.
That's a big marketing side that a lot of entrepreneurs have to do. You might not even have a marketing background, but you're forced into marketing. I want to find out about your story. I want to find out more about digging deeper to what happened to you. I know you had Alpha Procurement, you had a big client. What happened?
Having a big client is fantastic when the things are going well. The biggest challenge was that you have a big client. And it sounds a bit like an oxymoron, but the reality is you absolutely cannot just have a client. You must be in a position where you're sourcing other clients. And even if it means that you're taking 1 or 2 hours from that particular client that you focused on, the reality is things can change. And with COVID, we've realized that. Today the client is doing really well. Tomorrow they might be in retrenchment mode, which impacts you directly. And if you are,
Was this something that happened in your journey?
well, that's exactly what happened. Their business had changed. Their business model had changed. They had a change in management, and the view around having consultants providing services was no longer needed. So automatically it impacted on me. And at that stage, my main source of income was that one client, which worked well for me at the time. The challenge I had is that I was delaying the new business opportunities because I was comfortable. And that's a challenge with being an entrepreneur, is you perceive that when you're comfortable, you're in the right space. You actually need to worry if you're comfortable, because you need to make sure that there's new things happening as well. So my biggest challenge was the fact that I had one fantastic client. They looked after me, I looked after them, but I wasn't looking after my business by ensuring that I've got additional new businesses, new clients, sorry. So that was something that I'd struggled with.
But with that, you're saying you need to get other clients, but partitioning your time, you're focusing all this time on the one client, and I'm sure are you billing them per hour? Are you billing them per project? How does the billing system work with your client? Because where are you going to be able to fit in getting other clients? But with your relationship, like you're saying, how you were doing all this work, were you doing more work than necessary, or how is that procedure with you?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I'm glad you raised that, Jamie. The other thing about having a big client is, and billing them per hour or billing them per project, the reality around it is that you cannot sell yourself short. So even if you're billing 10 hours for the week and you're actually spending 20 hours on it, that's 10 hours that
How
you've
are you
lost.
finding 20 hours a week? And I'm thinking, what about all the other things about spending time with your family or spending time with, like you mentioned, your friend with the coffee and managing those things? But you're spending 20 hours on one client. Are you billing them for 20 hours, or how does that work?
And that is the thing with being an entrepreneur. You end up selling yourself short, actually, and that's exactly what it is. It's money in the pocket that doesn't get there because you think it's okay. They know what I'm about. They know what I'm doing. But having a big client is fantastic, like I said. They love the work that you're doing, but you need to make sure that you're also planning to have additional new business, etc. And that was my biggest challenge that I had. I wasn't ensuring that that was taking place. So you make the time, even if it's after hours. Find out about business opportunities, network, you actually have to say 1 hour each day, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to focus on new business only. So if you are doing let's say, a 5 hour stint for the one client, you make sure you only do your 5 hours, but you do it well.
Yeah, yeah.
And whether it's networking, looking at new opportunities, see that you have a good presence from the social media perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're outsourcing it and have like an exchange service with somebody else, it doesn't
The trade
necessarily,
exchange.
correct,
Yeah,
you don't necessarily have to pay physical cash for it,
yeah.
but it's being in collaboration with someone.
What I'm gathering here, and if I can summarize this nicely, being an entrepreneur means you have all these multiple roles and all these multiple jobs. The thing around having one client that might be nice, but you also need to manage how much time and the expectation that you have with that client and making sure that you can put things aside because it can be stressful around having the one client, even though it's really good, you know they're paying you, but things can change and it's out of your hands as an entrepreneur what happens in that client's life, in that client's business. When we come back, we're going to talk about more about Trace and how she solved these issues. So I'll see you guys soon after this break. Thank you. And welcome back to Be in the Business. I am Thurston Wyngaard, and we are still sitting here with Tracy Leak, who's given us her amazing journey from procurement of managing clients and the issue of having one big client and meeting the expectations. But now I want to find out from you, Tracy, of yes, you've had the one big client and they've had the issues that are out of your control. You've also mentioned from on the entrepreneurship side of how you have to network, do sales, and push yourself even harder. What other lessons can we learn from you and from your experience around having these clients?
Yeah, so one of the main lessons that I've learned is when you realize that you actually have to generate an income, whether it be actually going back in the mainstream business, it's not a failure.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an opportunity for you to take a breath and take the lessons that you've learned from being an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
You can go back there.
Yeah.
Sometimes that is just in your blood, and it's in your makeup to be an entrepreneur.
And this is something that you know, because I know with a lot of entrepreneurs, you have the sense of perseverance, which is
Yeah.
not bad,
Yeah.
but it's also about knowing when do you stop, when
Yeah.
do you take a break.
Yeah.
And what happened in your space around this? Did you take your break?
Yeah. So my break happened about, let me think, about 6 years after I'd started my business. I still had, I'll call it a side hustle, where I was still providing assistance to small and medium enterprises, providing training, etc., through different government entities. I found that sometimes you actually have a family that you still have a responsibility for. And my husband is highly supportive, and he still would have wanted me to be an entrepreneur to a certain extent. But sometimes you actually need to take that break and realize, okay,
Yeah.
I can start this again. Don't ever give up on the fact that you can be that entrepreneur again. But going back into the mainstream business doesn't necessarily mean that you are a failure from an entrepreneurial perspective. All those skills that you've acquired, you can direct it into different avenues. So where I found is I started an organization, if I can call it that, called Make a Difference. And all the skills that I'd acquired, the contacts that I'd made, etc., I've used that. And what I found was with the Make a Difference Foundation, basically, I raise funds, assist communities where there's a need. I focus particularly on young children and education, and assisting them, especially if they're from environments where funds, food, the next meal. And with COVID specifically, it was a very real situation.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'd actually pulled in quite a few people. And the reason why it's easy for me to do is because it's not for me. It's for somebody else. And the reality around it is that we cannot just exist. We have to make a difference. Whether it is buying an extra can of beans, whether it's actually just buying a liter milk, you need to make a difference. We cannot exist. We're not islands.
So this you've been doing for other people, and I understand that this is from the good of yourself, and I think you have to also work your way up. There's something like saying, lots of people want to help, but you need to get yourself up to a position where you are able to help. And in your case, you've worked your way up to a point where you can now pass down. I think there's something that I've also heard about a candle.
Yes, yes. So for me, I had a colleague when I worked some years back, and the one thing that stuck with me is, and this is what I share when I was facilitating training, is a candle loses nothing by sharing its light.
mm, mm,
And if you've ever seen a candle, one candle lighting the other one, it just goes brighter. So you have a responsibility to share your knowledge, to share your abilities, to share your skills. And if you've got money, share that too. You've got the responsibility to share your light. And I mean, if we just take that principle and apply it not only to our city, to our
mhm.
country, to the world, I mean, it would be a fantastically better place.
With that concept, like it sounds all nice. How has that affected how has that helped your business or your persona as Tracy Leak?
So for me, the best feeling I received was when I um, facilitate training to small micro enterprise businesses, startups, spaza shop people, that kind of setup. Is when you can actually see that penny drop and the
And the
light
lights go
actually.
on.
Yes. You know, when you're sharing something with them that you believe is something
Mm,
very simple, and you actually see that they understand it and they get what you're actually saying. For
mm,
me, and in some instances, it was work that I hadn't built.
mm.
And that's the other thing. You need to know when you can do that.
When you can pull and when you can do work pro bono.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or take a cut in your, because I mean, just to see somebody that maybe hadn't had a high school education, a 40-year-old woman or male looking, and then you can actually see that they get what you're
Nice.
saying. That for me is like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And that is just about sharing. That's about sharing that light. And you know, when I do the facilitation, I tell them, you need to make sure that what you've learned here, you share as well.
Nice, nice.
Because
I
you're
think
just
that's
growing
that's a
people.
nice way to wrap the whole situation up. And I see from your side of what you've learned, of going through your challenges, and in the case of sharing, and it seems more like when you share your content and your information, it's this personal growth and personal development
Yeah,
in yourself. And I think as entrepreneurs, that is something we need to be able to do. You're not just stuck in your silo. You're not just growing on your own because you're limiting your growth when you try to do this on your own. There's the African proverb as well. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, travel together. So,
correct.
Tracy, what I want to leave the viewers with now as well, if you could go back in time and you could speak to your younger self and you could give one part of entrepreneurship advice to your younger self, what would that advice be?
If I could tell my younger self, don't think that you cannot make your dreams come true. You
Mm,
need to make sure that you plan. And sometimes the journey is not a solo journey, but you need to make sure that you make those dreams a reality. And you can only make those dreams a reality if you actually take that step. You can have your dream board, you
nice.
can do whatever you want to, but if you do not have that step that you take, it's just, what did they say? If it's not on paper, it's vapor.
Oh gosh, for all the vapors out there.
There we go.
But that's been amazing having a discussion with you, Tracy. I
Thank you,
think
Jamie.
you're a wealth of information, and I think if anyone else needs to know about business development, about skills development, about procurement, about getting your tenders sorted, Tracy could be the one that you can come to. I know you still on your break right now with Alpha Procurement, but you still have all this information to share. So I'm sure you can connect on social media with Tracy as well. And speaking of social media, log on to our Insta, log on to our LinkedIn. You'll be able to continue the discussion with us online because it's not just about what happens right here in studio, but you might have a story to share with us as well. And we want to hear that story. So this is Being the Business. I am Jamie Thessamang. It's been a fantastic time. Thank you again, Tracy. I'm glad we could share your story.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I'm honored to be here. Thank
it's
you,
been a
Jamie.
pleasure. Thank you so much. And see you guys next week.